back, ladies and gentlemen, to N.Cast. I'm here, Prince Ayo, and you have?
I'm here again. It's Brian.
Hey, welcome back, Brian.
Like I
was telling Brian, I had like 2 N.Cast Plus episodes 2 days before this, so you guys are probably aware about this episode being about self-aware. So,
yeah. Self-awareness.
Yeah.
It's come to this.
Yeah. It's come to this. So, Brian, let me first ask you, how have you been? I know we had a quick, how you been, what's catching up and all that, but, seriously, how have you been? What's new? What's going on?
Let's see. What's new nowadays? Just chugging along in school, progressing with my school projects.
Okay.
Because, my personal projects have kind of taken a back seat right now, probably until the summer. But even regardless, I still have some cool stuff that I'm working on. One such thing is I'm working on a profile story on somebody that I believe is very interesting. And that's all I'll say on that matter. I'm not trying to give out any surprises just yet. But yeah, that's all I've been up to this past week. How about yourself?
Me? Honestly, this week has literally been such a 180 for me. But I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be potting with you. I'm grateful for the fact there's new beginnings for the next 6 months to 3 years. I got plans in place, system in place. Just can't wait for it. And that's why I wanted to talk about self-awareness, to be honest with you. And I think I'm just going to segue into it.
All right, let's get into it.
Yeah. So for self-awareness, what do you think that means? We don't have to go to the general textbook definition or Google definition. We just basically talk about it. I guess I'll paraphrase. What I think self-awareness means is knowing yourself, self-recognition, knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. Not a lot of people say double down on your strengths because those are your good skills, but neglecting the weaknesses kind of gives you an imbalance in life. You know?
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. Self-awareness about self-recognition. Recognizing where you stand. It's kind of think of it as think of self-awareness as taking your view and leaving your point of view and then looking at yourself from a third person perspective. And then to me that's what self-awareness is. And like you said, it's recognizing it's knowing your double down on your strengths, but also not neglecting your weaknesses. I think recognizing your weaknesses is such a good practice to do because when you're honest with yourself and you recognize your shortcomings, it allows you to work on what you can and just know your limits.
Exactly. Knowing your limits, knowing what you need to cut out in life and what you need to add on into life. But yeah, I just think overall it's so important. Now we can go touch into people who don't want to focus on their weaknesses and think they're great at everything. There's nothing wrong with that. Do you, but at the same time that's touching into narcissism and then you're gonna have expectations and entitlement and all that stuff that's just gonna crash and burn when you don't really get what you want out of life.
Yeah. So on that note, let me ask you.
What's up?
What do you feel are your strengths and weaknesses?
We talk about my strengths. Keep it positive first. I'm persevering. Well, perseverance. That's one of my strengths. I think that's one thing people can't take away from me. The curiosity to keep learning. People will be okay. Remember our last podcast with Bo and them, and they're talking about how, all right, there's at some point you're just gonna have to make some discernment and make a certain judgment. It's okay, yeah. But at the end of the day, even if I made my discernment, I'm still gonna learn after my discernment. You know what I'm saying? After my judgment on something or someone or some subject. You know what I'm saying? Because it's that thirst and that curiosity that I strive for. You know. At the end of the day, it's a hunger for me. It's become an obsession, and I think that's so much important than valuing materialistic stuff, because materialistic stuff to me is it comes and goes. I think about this all the time. Like I already envision myself like traveling a lot when I'm older. You know, I already envision myself like having the nicest things, but also having like the humility to go volunteer my time to serve the homeless, which I was just talking to Brian about. That we're probably going to do Monday. I'm going to go serve homeless people. This point in my life, I just feel like doing service for others is just going to help me grow as a person, and it'd be a cool project for Brian, so it can help him with school and stuff and have that experience. So I'm helping him too, which helps me, you know, at the end of the day. And that's part of being self-aware. You know, that's my strength of self-awareness, understanding that like giving, perseverance, just wanting, curiosity to grow. And then my weaknesses, I would say like too in tune with myself sometimes. And I'm in my head a lot, right? I'm in my head a lot because when I was maybe a little bit too much information, but when I was a child growing up, I was always like shut down to expressing myself. Half the reason why I have speech impediment, half the reason why like I can't express myself to certain people, building rapport with people has affected me, you know?
Yeah.
But like, there's nothing to blame. There's just something to work on at the end of the day. You know, I can't point fingers about my childhood. I can't point fingers with what my father did or anybody else did in my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
to kind of like inject a little bit there, I remember hearing something about how, like, as like a youth, I'm talking like young, like elementary school age, we're like pressured by society to not really like express like who we truly are, whether it be like our like creative side or like what our like true interests lie in. And it's like we're forced to, you know, for lack of a better term, we're forced to like conform to like a standard. And if you like really break from that standard, you know, you get sort of like stones thrown at you. It's like, how many times, you know, did you see like in elementary school class, like somebody would like do something that like everybody thought was weird, and then people would just make fun of them?
Trust me, I've been on that side of like the fence, to be honest with you. But sometimes weird ends up making millions at the end of the day, like because they went a different route. They didn't follow the herd. They didn't follow the masses. They ended up having their own independent thought. Now that doesn't work for everybody. They can go off the deep end with that independent thought. Like, that should be realistic. Some people can just go off the deep end and be like, okay, that guy is over there, or that girl, she's Lulu. You know what I mean? But sometimes when you just have that alternative like thought, it can be very successful because a lot of people are too scared to get out of their comfort zone. You know, at the end of the day, to get out of their comfort zone. I don't know why I was looking over there, but to get out of their comfort zone. and to an extent, I feel like that should be embraced more, you know? I feel like a lot of people are scared about getting exposed, privacy. I'm not trying to go off a tangent, so let me explain a little bit about that. Getting out your comfort zone and getting out that box will experience you to new stuff, like mentally, physically. Exposure actually teaches you more, whether you fail or not. You know, I think I was watching a Snoop Dogg interview, Snoop Lion, whatever, and he was just, you know what I mean? Like, he was just talking about like, I've been through so many failed projects, and I'm still here. He's 60, and like he's still relevant. Like 50 or 60 years old, still relevant. And like some of the stuff he says is kind of senile, and some of the stuff like he's right on and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's just like I was inspired by that interview because he wanted to persevere. But like, let me reel it back a little bit more. So let's just go back to you. I'm gonna ask you the same question. What are your strengths and weaknesses with self-awareness?
My self-aware strengths and weaknesses. So I'll follow in your footsteps. We'll start with the strengths first. You know, I'm a glass half full type of guy.
Okay.
So strengths. I think my biggest strength is perspective.
Okay.
You know, like going out of my way to like understand like all the perspectives that go on with something. Whether
are
it be
you
like
putting yourself in other people's shoes?
Yeah.
That's very hard to do.
Yeah.
Because we live in this, at least in the first world country, we live in a society where it's like me first. You know, and that's the reason. I don't mean to interject, but like that's the reason why I want to do this homeless shelter stuff, because every time I feel like it's just about me, it's gross to me. But
yeah, because the U.S. is a very like individualist sort of country. You know, very very individualist, and I've talked to this about a lot of people, but I might have mentioned this before on the podcast. I can't remember, but I like to tell people how like me learning Korean, like I learn more about this country that is actually like very different from the U.S. in terms of that it's not about individualism, it's about collectivism, and they kind of have like the opposite problem, like Korea, like they have too much collectivism and not enough
that's
individualism.
because almost everybody looks the same too. That's it.
You gotta relax.
No, but you know what I'm saying. A homogeneous, is that how you say it? Homogeneous society.
Homogenous
Society.
Well, you're right in the sense that you know everybody comes from the same culture. Yes.
It's easier to have collectivism if you come from the same culture.
Yeah,
we're
true.
We're in a melting pot in America. Like I'm not trying to like attack Asian. It's just it's easier when everybody like embraces the same culture, same values, same morals because it's a national like they're getting different facial expressions on your face. I'm not trying to paranoid people. I'm not trying to have people like go on hiding because that's just not, it's counterintuitive. You know what I'm saying? You already made certain decisions. Whatever I told you just now, you can make your decision now, but understand like this is where technology is going. You know what I mean? You feel me? Like just because social media looks good, there's still like a bigger plan that people need to understand, especially when it comes to Internet of Things, automation, AI. But that's a different story, so I'm gonna digress. But it's like just the idea of privacy is more of a marketing term than what it really needs to be. Really, you are in control of your privacy. You have settings for a reason. You use them, but to act like your data is not being sold to other like third-party companies by these social media apps, it's kind of absurd. So like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a big rabbit hole that we dance around.
I don't know. I was like surface. I'm like tapping around it.
Like tapping to see how hollow the ground is, and it's a big rabbit hole.
But I think because we're already at 25 minutes, we can go into the segue about closing thoughts.
Yeah, self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, moral of the story: understand who you are, understand your strengths, understand your weaknesses, understand both so that you can fine-tune your strengths and with your weaknesses potentially improve them or at least use them to just know like your limits, and also be aware of your surroundings, read the room, be aware of the temperature, do your homework, know
due
the
diligence,
know who you're speaking to, and it's a very, very, very important skill to have.
and it takes practice, which means you're gonna fail. Get used to it. I'm so serious. If you're failing, that means you're trying, which means you're winning. You miss every shot you don't take.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
If you learn nothing from this podcast episode, learn that.
Yeah. So, and also being self-aware also helps you how you treat others.
Yeah, that is very true.
How you treat others.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like, sometimes you lost people because you weren't self-aware enough to know about your actions. You're just lollygagging through life, not really understanding that you're affecting other people. You know? But, keep it positive. No matter what.
Glass half full.
Yeah. So that's all I got. I'm not going to keep reiterating my social media stuff. I can put it up on the screen. I've been doing that lately. So our social media stuff above our heads. We appreciate you. If you're watching, me and Brian have been working really hard at this. I appreciate Brian for even joining me on this idea of N.Cast. We're just going to keep moving forward. And hopefully you can learn something from this, whether it's tomorrow or 5 years down the line. Because at the end of the day, it's still being documented. But yeah, Brian, what else you guys say?
I said about all I can say, yeah.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is N.Cast. Until next time. Peace. Go ahead and say it before we get out.
안녕히 가세요. 그만해요.
All right, y'all.
Can't be scared, life not fair. Truth or dare, these rhymes I share. Can't be anything, no, not everything. Money or whatever, and choose